is there immaturity in what I found myself doing recently? Was I'll pray for God to move, and then an experience will happen, and I will not have an experience like I had that night.
Yeah.
And I'm doing this like comparison expectation kind of thing of like I feel good, and I feel like I'm in the room, and I feel like I like all this, but it like to me as who I am, it's like this wasn't as powerful, or this wasn't as much of an experience.
Yeah.
And what does that look like?
Yeah.
And is it wrong there? Like what? I don't know.
I would say yes, there is an immature aspect of that. But I don't think it's wrong. Like, or it's like, it's natural. And I think even in our workspace, we would talk about like, I've seen this situation, whether it's a customer or whatever, and we called it template matching.
Okay.
So because I've seen this situation before, the next time I see something similar, I was like, well, I know what the solution is to fix that. And a lot of times that can be beneficial, and it can make you increase in efficiency, X, Y, Z, right? But sometimes because we have this innate thing, well, it's another revival night, so I'm going to template match the experience I had 6 months ago and say this experience is supposed to be the same.
Right.
And it's not always the same.
Yeah.
And then that, I think, can be detrimental, because then we say, well, God's not moving the same way.
Right.
What's happening? It's also a little like, and I'm egocentric to be like, if God's moving in the room, I'm the one that needs to feel it to validate that God's moving.
Right.
And realistically, just because I'm in a worship experience and not feeling the thing, it's like, I'm like, kind of had this idea like, well, God, why didn't you show up the same way?
Yeah.
It's like, but I'm not in every other person's situation.
Yeah.
And I would like look around and say like, whoa, it's like these people are having a totally different experience. And like, maybe God's actually moving so deeply in their heart, and there's a reason why she's on her knees and crying out. It's like, and I'm like looking at it, it's like, whoa, I was like, I don't feel anything, so that must mean that like God's not moving. It's like, no, he is. It's just not in my same experience.
How does that compare to having a healthy expectation? And how different is that, or how similar is it of like, I'm going to, really spend some time today to set my expectations of I'm going to go into this and I'm going to be, and obviously there's different ways that you can do that of like, I'm going to expect God to give me this crazy experience is one thing. I'm going to go in and have this expectation of being open is a completely different thing.
Yeah. And I think that there's something in that too. It's like, I think we have a responsibility to prepare our hearts to go into a room like that. So most times when I go in and I feel like I'm not having the experience that I expected, if I'm being honest, 99.9% of those things, like maybe I let the cares of life fill 100%. My day. And so I didn't walk into the room with a heart that is ready to actually engage with the Spirit. And I think, well, as soon as the lights go down and the intro track plays, like, well, then I'm ready. It's like, but maybe I haven't actually done the work to actually prepare myself. But then ultimately, I guess to come back to your question is like, tell me if I'm wrong. I heard like, is it wrong for us to take an expectation of what we've experienced in the past and like say like, well, we want to receive that again?
Yeah.
And the answer to that, I would say, is like, no, it's not wrong to have that.
Right.
It just can't, it only becomes limiting if we narrow our view and our focus of what it looks like for God to move, if it is only in that capacity.
Right.